I wish this was appropriate to start with a peace greeting. I'd like to. Um, but sometimes I got to warn you about things, and I have to call people out to the extent that it could be inappropriate and I wouldn't even know it. So sometimes I play it safe, and it's one of those times. Um, when Brittany Renner accepted Islam, I did not pass a judgment and say she's not sincere. I did not pass a judgment and say she's absolutely sincere. I passed no judgment and said she gets the same chance everybody gets. She can prove it or she can disprove it. And to prove that she's not sincere requires more than just her slipping up and doing wrong. It requires her undermining the religion itself, not just morally falling short. There is a distinct difference between the two. But by the same token, I wanted to point out that many of our people will take a look at some sort of path of redemption or righteousness, or path that we associate with redemption and righteousness. When young, and will say, I'm too young for it. I'm not going to go that path now. I got to get all this dirt out of my system first. That is not wisdom. If you live long enough and you are able to come out of that dirt out of your system phase, there's still going to be a type of wisdom that you will lack, you will miss. And truth be told, the seed of hypocrisy will still be in you. You don't merely have to just say, okay, well, you know what? Now I'm going to do the right thing. You have to also say, I was wrong for doing the wrong thing earlier. And you can't just sit up and say, well, I was young and I had to do it then. You must also sit up and say, I shouldn't have done it. And being young is not an excuse. That was the wrong thing to do, period. And you could look at why you did it. And you could try to offer the current day youth an alternative to it. And that's fine. But you still have to admit you were wrong for doing it. Brittany Renner did what would be called grooming if the genders were reversed. She would have called it grooming if the genders were reversed. She can't sit up and say, I was young. I had to go through it. She can't sit up and say that because that's not an excuse. She didn't have to go through that phase. She has shown complete immaturity, a lack of self-control, meltdowns. And that's not all going to go away magically because now she puts on a hijab and says, Inshallah. And if she were to have gone into a church and answered the altar call, or if she had gone into one of the synagogues of the Hebrew Israelites and said that she's going to obey the Most High in the Old Testament, this is not going to magically go away. The character defects and flaws are not going to magically go away. When I became Muslim, I was impatient. I was impulsive to a certain extent, but definitely impatient. I would not exercise patience to the benefit of other people. You know what? To this day, I still won't. Now, I knew that that was going to be a problem when I accepted. That's the difference between me and her. I realized that there were many things I could change for the better. That was not going to be one of them. I am no more patient at a red light now than I was 6 months before I became Muslim. But I knew that beforehand going in. And one of the things I realized was that if I wanted to get rid of some of this anxiety on the road, I should just leave earlier. But I knew there was not going to be a magical uh, reform of the worst part of me. Nope. However, one thing I could say was that I went into Islam because of more information. It became widely available after a particular event one September in the early 2000s. Information was all over the place. But not only that, I discovered churches lying. I said, oh, okay, there's something going on. Why would churches, as bastions of honesty, turn around and tell these lies? What's going on here? There it was, right there in front of me. And as I kept researching, I eventually came to a chapter in the Quran's English translation that I was reading that matched a dream I had years before. I said, okay. So when I was asking God for signs years ago, what the truth was, he gave me one. And I didn't even know that it was a sign because I did not know that I was dreaming about a chapter of his latest revelation. But here it is in front of me. I'm not playing around anymore. So I can say that I did not sit up and look at all of these truths and then wait until I screwed my life up to decide, okay, I'm going to submit to the Lord of the heavens and the earth. I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm saying this to say that if you're going to be mature about something, you don't do it under extreme circumstances. You don't decide that you're going to approach something extremely. And that also goes for deciding to not accept the truth until you have screwed your life up. You don't do that. Because in a nutshell, what that says is you're going to give the worst of creation your best, and then you're going to give the creator your worst. And as men, I sit up and I tell men, you don't deserve this from women. You don't let these women give you their worst and give the worst men their best. But as men, if you don't deserve this, then we have to understand that God really does not deserve this. But we have to also admit that as black men, you, especially if you were not raised single-handedly by one of the sisters, are more likely to decide that something is true based on its merits, not based on how much you jacked your life up. That's what we have to keep in mind. This is what's different between us. Many of the sisters are going to do exactly that. They're going to decide that whatever they can see as being the truth of truths, they will accept after they have screwed their lives up. They won't come to the altar or to the masjid or to the synagogue or to the Black Consciousness Center or Community Center short of jacking their lives up. They will not go to the Lord of the higher calling until they're broken by decisions they made. With men, it could go either way, but generally speaking, if we're not forced to grow up listening to the gynocracy's romanticized tales of only being saved after you're just so broken, then many of us would say, well, if we're going to accept that this is true, why don't we accept it now? There's a proverb in Ethiopia: it is easy to be a monk in one's old age. And what many men are saying is, well, if you're going to be one, you're not really sure that you're a monk unless you do it when you're at least middle-aged, probably young, though. Whereas ladies are like, yeah, I'm going to wait until I'm old and become a nun. I have to wait till I'm old to become a nun. I can't do this when I'm young. And I'm not even one who promotes monasticism of any type in men or women. I don't promote this sort of thing. But because of what it means to other people, I do say that if you're going to go a path of self-discipline for the sake of a truth from on high, you don't wait till you screwed your life up to do it. If you do, if that's when you're going to do it, then admit that this is between you and God and you are not much benefit to the community, and don't sell yourself as such. Just admit it. Admit it to yourself first. Then later, when people in the community realize that you believe what they do, you admit it to them too. Look, I screwed my life up a lot. I'm not a benefit to the community. Maybe one day I could become one, but I ain't right now. And I'm not going to lie to y'all about that. I'm no good to y'all. The reason, what I'm saying, is that it is not a situation in which a lot of them have to go through and see just how bad things are and then come around and say, okay, you know what? I can see the path to redemption now. It's not even a situation like that. Usually they can see that that path to redemption is a path to redemption, or they can see that it's unlike other paths. They usually have to go the wrong way first because it's wrong. They're playing, in other words. From the very beginning, they plan, I'll go that right way later. I know it's the right way. At least I know this wrong way is wrong. I'm going to go the right way later, but not right now. That's what they're doing. They're playing from the very beginning. They playing. Either playing with the Lord or playing with who or what they believe to be the Lord. That's why it is that on Buy Me a Coffee, I recorded an upload, Fighting Dirty to Win or Fighting Back to Win. When I tell you, and when there was a commentator here on my channel, I forgot his name, but he asked, did you upload how it is that you can fight this gender war to win? And I said, no, I did not actually. And I thought about, well, what parts are actually righteous to share and which parts are not? And I went ahead and shared that. But the reason I went ahead and shared a particular part that's not even necessarily righteous, is just necessary, is because of the hypocrisy. You were dealing with some ladies who, while they may not meet the religious definition of hypocrites, depending on what your religious definition is, when they finally do become religious, are not going to come into whatever the religion is they pick without seeds of hypocrisy. They still hold on to this notion that they had to go through the whole phase. They had to go through the party girl phase. They had to go through the city girl phase. They had to have city girl summer. They had to have the girls trips. They still hold on to this notion that they had to go through that stuff before they could walk upright. They had to be a bed wench to Brad before they could become black conscious and pro-black. They had to be a thought before they could exercise any chastity. And even then, they had to let Pookie, Ray Ray, Tyrone, and Brad blow their back out before they could try to settle down with guys they don't even much like. They had to go and get a few abortions before they turn around and say they want to have your baby. In the name of the Lord, they they still hold on to this notion. So what this means is that when they go to the altar or to the masjid or to the synagogue or to the Black Conscious Community Center, whenever they finally do go there, they don't go and say, you know what, God, I was wrong from the beginning. I should have walked this path from the start. They're not even saying that. What they're doing is they're saying, okay, now I got this dirt out my system, God, I'm coming to you. Since I'm done disobeying you, that's the problem. And then later on, when they do look for someone with whom to share that path, they don't even have the decency to say, well, because of how jacked up I am, I need a man that walked that bad road or went that bad path so that he knows that I'm playing games. Instead of having the decency to say that, they got to sit up and say, well, I'm attracted to men that walk that path because, I used to be that and I still got a little bit of that in me. Like that's right. Like that's right. Like it's okay. And so what that means is that if you were a man who was mature enough to walk what you could recognize as the right path while you were young and bypass all the sugarnit that comes before that, thereby never becoming a former idness because you never were an idness, she sits up and says, well, you not her type, instead of admitting that she actually isn't yours. So what this means is that even when you walk the path of redemption as best you can identify it, and she walks a path of redemption as best she can identify it, we are still not the same. And that's why I told you got to fight dirty to win. And I talked about how to do it on Buy Me a Coffee. I just uploaded it. It's only for first class, at least probably for another week. For the first week, it's only for first class. I'm not sure what to do. Next week, I might forget to make it available for business class. So if you want to hear it, you just got to go ahead and join the first class. Like you got to subscribe. You can't just do a donation. You got to subscribe. It's not terribly deep, but I go into it. But the reason I go into it there is because of the seeds of contrition that sisters and Western women in general will not bring when they do decide to walk some sort of path of reform. That's why. I hope that what I've said helps and benefits and explains it to you. As always, thank you for listening. Black heart, black mind, black out, black heterosexual, non-select male power because they don't like it, and black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Thank you for flying with us again here on Jet Black Airways, where the phrase jet black is also a verb. Join the first class lounge so that you can get that post that I just told you about. Keep jetting black with us till the wings and the wheels fall off. Gender justice forever.